Kurt Cobain, the lead singer of the enormously popular rock band Nirvana, is dead at the age of 27.
The last 24 hours of Kurt Cobain, April 5th, 1994. Seattle was gray, overcast, normal for spring in the Pacific Northwest. But inside a modest home in the Denny Blaine neighborhood, the man whose voice had defined a generation was facing his final moments. Kurt Cobain, lead singer of Nirvana, had slipped away from rehab, bought a shotgun, and now sat alone in the greenhouse above his garage. Within hours, the voice behind "Smells Like Teen Spirit" would be silenced. It wasn't just a loss for music, it was a fracture in the cultural identity of the 1990s. By April 8th, the world stood still. An electrician found his body. A note was discovered beside him. The news ripped through fans like an earthquake, stunned, grieving, and searching for understanding. Yet even today, 3 decades later, many still wrestle with the same haunting question: what really happened in the final hours of Kurt Cobain? Kurt Donald Cobain was born on February 20th, 1967 in Aberdeen, Washington. He grew up in a working-class family. His father, Don, was a mechanic. His mother, Wendy, worked as a waitress. But Kurt's world began to unravel when his parents divorced when he was 9. That trauma never left him. He grew quiet, withdrawn. Drawing and music became his escape. He discovered punk through mixtapes from a friend, Buzz Osborne of the Melvins. Punk was loud, messy, and honest. Everything Kurt needed. At age 14, he got his first guitar. By the 1987, he'd teamed up with Krist Novoselic, and together they formed what would become Nirvana. They were nobody at first. Playing dive bars in the Pacific Northwest, Nirvana's earliest gigs often felt more like rehearsals than concerts, raw, unpolished, and barely noticed. Their 1989 debut album Bleach, recorded on a shoestring budget, was loud and uncompromising. It hinted at something deeper, but sold modestly. The band was restless, still searching for its identity. That identity began to solidify when Dave Grohl joined the group in 1990. His drumming added the explosive backbone Kurt's songs needed. With Grohl in place, they entered Sound City Studios to record what would become Nevermind, an album that didn't just introduce Nirvana to the mainstream, but redefined it altogether. When Nevermind was released in September 1991, expectations were low, but then something happened. College radio stations picked up "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and soon it was everywhere. Radio, MTV, jukeboxes, high school hallways. Within months, the album dethroned Michael Jackson's "Dangerous" from the Billboard charts. The underground had broken through, and Cobain almost overnight became its reluctant face. Other tracks, "In Bloom," "Come As You Are," "Lithium," proved the band wasn't a one-hit phenomenon. Their music captured a strange mix of rage and melancholy, sneering at conformity while aching for connection. For many young people, it was the first time they'd heard their own confusion reflected back at them with honesty. Nirvana wasn't just a band, they were a mirror. By 1992, the band was headlining festivals, topping charts globally, and being hailed as the voice of Generation X. Yet Cobain recoiled from the spotlight. While industry insiders tried to mold Nirvana into a corporate product, Kurt used the platform to elevate others. He wore t-shirts promoting obscure feminist punk bands. He included marginalized voices in interviews. Fame had landed in his lap, but he refused to let it dictate his values. Their performance on Saturday Night Live on January 11, 1992 was chaotic and unforgettable, and their Reading Festival headline later that year has since become legendary. Dressed in a hospital gown, Kurt limped on stage in a parody of rumors about his health, then ripped into a blistering set that critics now rank among the greatest live shows in rock history. In between the chaos, Nirvana released Incesticide on December 14, 1992, a collection of demos, covers, and deep cuts. It was an intentional curveball, showcasing the band's humor, influences, and refusal to play it safe. When they returned with In Utero on September 21, 1993, it was clear they had no interest in repeating Nevermind. The sound was stripped down, angry, and abrasive. Heart-Shaped Box became a reluctant hit, but the album was more defiant than welcoming. Critics praised its honesty. Fans felt the weight of every lyric. The pain was no longer hinted at, it was laid bare. Despite the acclaim, the demands of fame were eating away at Kurt. The larger Nirvana became, the more Kurt felt disconnected from the very people they were speaking to. Every magazine cover, every camera flash, every interview chipped away at him. What started as an emotional outlet had become a stage he couldn't leave. He couldn't control how the world saw him. But through his music, he tried, again and again, to show them who he really was. Away from the stage, Kurt's life was filled with contradictions. In 1992, he married Courtney Love in Hawaii. Their daughter, Frances Bean, was born that same year. Love was not just a partner. She was a creative force, fronting her own band, Hole. But their relationship was marked by addiction, chaos, and fame. Kurt's stomach pain, undiagnosed and relentless, drove him to heroin. At times, he was spending $400 a day on the drug. He once said heroin made him feel normal, like it gave him the relief no doctor could offer. In early 1994, Nirvana toured Europe. During a stop in Germany, Cobain developed bronchitis and laryngitis. He flew to Rome to recuperate. On March 4th, Courtney found him unconscious. He'd overdosed on champagne and Rohypnol. He remained in a coma for hours. He survived, but it was later revealed this was his first suicide attempt. Back home in Seattle, things deteriorated fast. On March 18th, Courtney called police saying Kurt had locked himself in a room with a gun and was suicidal. Officers confiscated his firearms and pills. Kurt denied the accusation, claiming he simply wanted space. On March 25th, Love organized an intervention. It was an emotional battle. Kurt lashed out, insulted everyone, locked himself away. But by nightfall, he gave in. He agreed to enter rehab. On March 30th, he flew to Los Angeles and checked into a facility. That very day, he asked his friend Dylan Carlson to buy him a shotgun, supposedly for protection. Carlson did. On April 1st, Kurt walked out of the facility unnoticed. He boarded a flight back to Seattle. For several days, his whereabouts were unknown. Friends searched, but no one could reach him. He was off the grid. In those final days, Kurt was alone. According to later timelines, he spent time wandering his neighborhood, possibly visiting his old haunts. There were no public sightings. He didn't contact friends or family. He was ghosting the world. On April 5th, he entered the greenhouse above his garage. He had the shotgun Dylan Carlson had bought. He wrote a note addressed to his childhood imaginary friend, Bodda. Then he pulled the trigger. 3 days later, on April 8th, an electrician arrived to install a security system. Through a window, he saw Kurt's lifeless body. The shotgun was resting across his chest. The note sat in a flower pot. The news broke immediately, first to local outlets, then to the world.
Kurt Cobain, the leader of one of rock's most gifted and promising bands, Nirvana, is dead.
Fans gathered outside his home. Thousands called radio stations in disbelief. MTV suspended regular programming to run Nirvana videos and tributes. Vigils erupted from Seattle to London. Courtney Love released a recorded message at a public memorial on April 10th at Seattle Center. Over 7,000 people showed up. Through tears, she read excerpts of Kurt's suicide note. She yelled at him for leaving. She shared her pain with fans who were just as shattered. The autopsy confirmed death by suicide from a self-inflicted shotgun wound. Toxicology reports showed high levels of heroin and traces of diazepam in his bloodstream. Experts later speculated he may have died almost instantly. His body had laid undiscovered for nearly 3 days. Rumors and theories exploded. Some refused to believe it was suicide. They claimed inconsistencies in the crime scene. Others pointed fingers at Courtney Love. Documentaries and books fed these suspicions. But no official evidence ever emerged to support foul play. The case remains closed. Kurt's legacy, however, did not. Nirvana's music endured. Frances Bean Cobain, just a toddler at the time, would grow up hearing her father's voice everywhere. Artists from Post Malone to Billie Eilish cite him as inspiration. His raw vulnerability broke barriers. In 2020, during the height of the pandemic, Post Malone streamed a full Nirvana tribute set, raising millions for charity.
It's so relieving to know that you're leaving as soon as you get back.
In April 2024, on the 30th anniversary of his death, the BBC aired a comprehensive documentary honoring his life. Today, Kurt Cobain is still more than a rock star. He's a symbol of authenticity, pain, rebellion, and misunderstood genius. He didn't want to be worshipped. He didn't want to be famous. He just wanted to make noise that mattered. And he did, even if it cost him everything.